Good evening and welcome along to Team Talk, the show that brings you the biggest sporting news, views and incredible stories from across Kent. Let's take a check on tonight's lineup. Jay Saunders isn't happy with the ref and Dover are left to rue goalkeeping errors. Just two of the stories from an enthralling weekend of football in Kent.
Really disappointed to lose the game. Of course we are, we're all frustrated. But the bigger picture is, all the shot are right up there. And I thought second half, if anyone was going to win it, it was going to be us.
Can Knight go for gold? We catch up with Kent paraskier Millie Knight ahead of the Winter Paralympics.
Well, based on last season, when we won a gold and 3 silvers at the World Champs, it is looking positive. But currently, I won't be achieving that until I can get my confidence back.
And are the storm clouds circling over Canterbury? I chat to the KM Group's Mark Stokes for the latest on North East Donald and the Director of Cricket at Kent.
A lot of things up in the air at the moment, most notably who's going to be captain next season. We all thought it was going to be a rubber stamp appointment of Sam, because he's Sam North East, having done the last 2 years, but it would appear that he's been told unofficially that he's no longer the county's preferred choice.
More on a very interesting story developing at Kent later on in the programme. But first, it was a cracking weekend of football across Kent with plenty of goals. Here's a roundup of the results, starting with an 8-goal thriller at Woking. Unbeaten in 3 but without a win since the 11th of November, Maidstone were hoping to kickstart their new year with a win at Woking. Jay Saunders would go on to call the referee an absolute disgrace following this contest, and the problems began after just 7 minutes. No penalty and no red card for Woking stopper Nathan Baxter following this foul on Delano Sam York. The fixture's fun finally began on 20 minutes. Kane Ferdinand with a wonderfully looped finish to give the host the lead. The Stones were level just 5 minutes later. Stuart Lewis lost possession in the build-up to the opening goal, but made amends as his deflected shot levelled the scores. But back came Woking, big Nigerian striker Ini Effiong getting past Seth Tumasi before slamming beyond Worgan. Jay Saunders said the refereeing for both sides was poor throughout, and it showed here. Firstly, Sam York was not given a spot kick despite this clumsy tangle of legs, but then minutes later Tumasi was awarded one, despite Jason Banton appearing to win the ball. Despite the Woking protests, Jai Reason slotted away the penalty to make it 2 apiece. No less than 30 seconds later, and Maidstone had the lead for the first time. Top scorer Joe Piggott got in behind the defence before producing a gorgeous chip over Baxter. Battles resumed after the break, including the one between Tumasi and Effiong. Was the striker simply too strong for the fullback, or should his force have been deemed excessive? The referee favoured the former before Charlie Carter curled home an equaliser. Stones players were left fuming, as was Jay Saunders. The black and amber side soon let football do the talking though. Stuart Lewis was quickest to react as he blasted home his second of the game. But once again the pendulum swung. Having earlier given away the penalty, Jason Banton made it 4-4 as his deflected strike wrong-footed Worgan. Remarkably, there were no more goals in the final half an hour, although Woking came agonisingly close to a winner in the 96th minute. At the end of all the drama, it's only a point apiece for these two sides. Maidstone's wait for a National League victory continues. At Crabble, Dover were after a first win in a month following 4 straight draws. They welcomed a dangerous Aldershot side who were 3 points above them in the table. The hosts had the better chances in the first half, Manny Parry with 2 of the best, but he failed to find a way past Lewis Ward. At the other end, it was a mistake from Dover's keeper that led to the opening goal. Mitch Walcott was unable to hold on to the cross and Jim Kellerman capitalised. The Whites were level almost immediately though. This time Manny Parry did find a way into the net following Mitch Pinnock's pinpoint cross. Once again, defensive frailties cost Chris Kinnear's side in the second half. Walker and Parry involved in a mix-up, allowing Nicky Kabamba to have the easiest of goals on his debut. The Whites failed in their pursuits to get an equaliser, meaning they sit 5th in the table.
Really disappointed to lose the game. Of course we are, we're all frustrated. But the bigger picture is, all the shot are right up there. And I thought second half, if anyone was going to win it, it was going to be us.
Elsewhere in the National League, Ebbsfleet were left disappointed as they were beaten at home by struggling Chester. In the National League South, Dartford are 2 points clear at the top of the table following a draw at in-form Concord Rangers. In the Bostik Premier, Margate faced the daunting prospect of a visit to Moneybags Billericay Town. But despite disparity in finances, it was the visitors that hit the front. David Martin's deflected effort bobbling into the net to give Steve Watt's side the lead. Resolute defending held the hosts until the 87th minute when Adam Cunnington headed in an equaliser. Gate ensured they secured a point to keep them 9th in the table. At the Longmead Stadium, Joe Turner gave Tunbridge Angels the dream start against Lowestoft as he made it 2-0 after just 12 minutes. However, the visitors hit back before the break courtesy of a goal from Harvey Hodds. And then they snatched a leveller in the second half after Angels missed chances to extend their lead. Tunbridge sit 11th, 5 points off the top 7. The 21st goal of the season for Adi Youssef gave Folkestone the lead at table toppers Dulwich Hamlet, but the hosts replied with 4 goals, 2 either side of half-time, to put them in a commanding position. Invicta twice threatened a comeback, including this impressive hit from Ian Draycott, but time caught up with them, meaning Dulwich claimed all 3 points. In the Bostik South, Ashford's revival continues. They made it 5 games unbeaten with a win over Chipstead. On the contrary, it's now 7 consecutive defeats for Sittingbourne. Herne Bay lost 4-1 at home to Corinthian Casuals, whilst former Arsenal youngster Zach Anser scored on his debut as Hythe got past East Grinstead. Faversham were beaten by high-flying Lewis. Alfie Paxman was amongst the goals again for Ramsgate as they drew with Shoreham, and finally Thamesmead were unable to get past Whiteleaf, succumbing to a 3-2 loss. And joining me in the studio this week to look back on the weekend's football, namely his side's performance at Billericay, is Margate manager Steve Watt. Steve, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Firstly, we just saw there a 1-1 draw at Billericay for Margate at the weekend. What were your thoughts on the game? Pleased with the result?
Yeah, I mean we've had a lot of trouble over recent weeks with results and injuries, and we went up there with not a full strength side, so we went out trying to get a result. And in the end, I thought it was unfortunate not to get all 3 points. I mean, we should have had a penalty in the first half and had opportunity, a 1v1, to go 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go and keep them in a fantastic save. But it's a tough place to go, particularly this time of year. The pitch wasn't great. And what's been happening at that club, you know, is a completely different challenge going to Billericay now than it was maybe 3-4 years ago. And got a fantastic squad there. But I was just pleased and proud of the boys played, and glad to put a stop to the losing streak we've been on, and hopefully we can build on that performance Saturday.
How did you assess the result at the end? Because, I mean, you might have taken a point beforehand, but with 5 minutes to go, you led 1-0.
Well, I think you've got to look back and you've got to be positive. It was disappointing to concede late again from a set piece, but the amount of pressure they put us under, particularly in that second half, it was just good to see a reaction from the boys, because I was heavily critical over the team. Over the festive period, I thought we became a little bit too easy to play against, a little bit soft, if you like, in certain situations. And for the boys to stand up and perform like that on Saturday, against all odds, I mean, I think a lot of people had written us off going there. Particularly, maybe even our own fans, if you like, maybe, because, I mean, it is, you're going there up against it, really. You expected to lose. It's a free shot, if you like, so the players, there's no pressure on us today. It's all, they're expected to win. It's one of those rare games. Most games we go into the season, the expectation's on us, but the players could go out and express themselves. And I said, just give your all, chaps. If you got, you won't be far away. And unfortunately, we weren't. But look, if you said before a game, would you take a point? 100%.
And you say about off the back of a couple of defeats as well. How would you assess the season? We're coming towards the second half of the campaign now, in towards the back straight. How do you assess where Margate are at the moment? 9th, 5 points off that 7th spot.
Yeah, I think we should be higher. You know, I think our performance, our consistency over the season has been, I would say, quite good. Our defensive record was excellent up until that Christmas break, and we conceded 11 goals over 3 games. And up until that point, I think we'd only conceded, I believe, 17 in 20. You know, so it's a real contrast, a real damaging Christmas period to our ambitions, if you like. But I think over the course of the season, what the club's been through in the past, and we've maintained it from before a ball was kicked this season. We're about stabilising the club, but about building the club right, not about in previous years where it's been more about throwing money at things and trying to get up and desperate to get success. We want to build it right, and not just on the pitch, off of it as well. So where we're sitting, I think we're sitting okay. You know, we're sitting a lot better 3-4 games ago, but we've got a side that's capable of going on runs. We've proved that this season. We've went on 10 games unbeaten. We lost 3 in a bounce then, and then we went 13 or 14 unbeaten and then lost 3 again. So we've got a side that can go on runs. And we put one of those runs together again, we won't just be in amongst it, we'll be firmly in it. And so I've got full belief in the squad. It's a good bunch of boys and they're here for the right reasons. And I said, look, I think it'll be exciting times ahead. So we maybe need to look to strengthen a little bit because we are struggling with injuries. But it's this time of year, who isn't? You know, so it's about making sure we're bringing the right players if we're bringing players in, and looking to continue to climb that table when we can.
Well, we'll chat a little bit more after the break, but for the time being, Steve, thank you very much for the time being. We'll have more from Steve in a few moments' time. That's just about it for the first half here on Team Talk. After the break, we'll be talking Kent Cricket Club in Best of the Back Pages. Earlier on, I caught up with the KM Group's with the KM Group's Mark Stokes, I should say, and we had a deep discussion about an important month for Kent ahead. We'll also bring you December's Goal of the Month contenders, some absolute corkers in there, including a last-minute screamer from Alfie Pavey for Dartford against Welling. Here's what else is still to come in the second half. We'll be catching up with Kent paraskier Millie Knight as she gears up for the Winter Paralympics and get her reaction to finishing second in Young Sports Personality of the Year.
I couldn't believe it. You know, even to make the top 10 was amazing. But you know, even in that top 10, there were some fantastic athletes. And for me to make top 3, I really didn't think I was worthy of being up there.
And in this week's Team Talk teaser, we're asking how old was Millie when she was the flag bearer of the 2014 Winter Games in Sochi. We'll bring you the answer in a few moments' time. Welcome back to the second half of Team Talk. Before the break, we asked you how old was Kent paraskier Millie Knight when she was the Team GB flag bearer at the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. The answer was just 15 years of age, and the reason we're asking that is because Knight will be heading off to South Korea for this year's Winter Olympics inside the next month. The Canterbury-born athlete is hoping to pick up a medal after she won gold at the World Championships last year. Earlier on today, I caught up with Millie and began by asking her how pleased she felt to be named in the Team GB squad for the Games.
I was actually quite shocked because we'd not had a great start to our season, and you know, the races hadn't gone the way we'd like to, and to actually get selected was fantastic because we only had actually two spots for 3 athletes, so it was a bit of a sort of competitive push to try and get a slot. But you know, now that we are actually selected, the pressure is off a little bit.
And just give us an insight into your schedule between now and the start of the Games. How are preparations going?
So currently I'm out in Switzerland, in Crans-Montana, and then we move to another place in Switzerland in a few days' time for 4 World Cup races. And then we move to Tignes in France, and then we have another 5 races, I think. And then we have another training camp, and then we fly out to Korea on the 23rd of February.
When we spoke to you at the back end of last year, you said you didn't want to make any predictions for a specific medal, but how do you rate your chance of being in the mix-up for a place on the podium?
Well, based on last season, when we won a gold and 3 silvers at the World Champs, you know, it is looking positive. But currently, you know, I won't be achieving that until I can get my confidence back.
And do you think there's anyone in particular who you should be looking out for, who's going to be challenging you for medals?
Yes, Henrietta Fakisova. She's Slovakian. She's very, very fast and has always been sort of my main rival. Last season, you know, we took it in turns, winning each race, and so that sort of competitism is really good.
Finally, Millie, you were recently in the final 3 for Young Sports Personality of the Year. How pleased were you not only to make the shortlist, but then also to make the final 3?
I couldn't believe it. You know, even to make the top 10 was amazing. But you know, even in that top 10, there were some fantastic athletes. And for me to make top 3, I really didn't think I was worthy of being up there. It's a shame we couldn't actually attend the night. But it looked like a great night, and you know, to come in the top 3 was absolutely amazing.
Well, Millie, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today, and very best of luck in South Korea.
Thank you very much.
Ken Paraski and Millie Knight talking to me earlier on today. I'm still joined by Steve Watt, manager of Margate. Steve, one of the big talking points in the county in recent weeks has been about 3G pitches. Margate introduced a 3G pitch this season. How's it been for your side? I
think fantastic. I mean, the new owner came in and it was one area he made quite a late decision on it, to be honest. And lucky enough, we got early games away from home, which I think we maybe have to have changed if it didn't get done. But it got all finished in time. But the pitch itself is fantastic. He made sure he laid the best he could, and we're really benefiting from it. I mean, not just from a football club in terms of the income it brings on a pitch as well. Players enjoy it. I mean, we played on Saturday, and I think the away kit will be ruined now, the white kit we had on Saturday. So not just that, the game's not getting called off, so it's not affecting any home matches. So it's really, really good. I mean, I was part of it, played on it at Maidstone for the first time a few years back as well. So really enjoyed it then. So for me, it's a massive benefit in non-league. And I think you'll probably see a lot more clubs do it as the years go on. Would you say to the people who say it's an advantage for the home teams that have got these pitches? I think there's not a home game advantage to every club. I mean, no matter what the pitch is, some people play on their pitch, and I've got to teams where they've let the grass grow longer, so it's an advantage to them, not a disadvantage to us as an away team turning up. All little things that clubs do to get the edge, they do. Now, I don't think installing a 3G of hundreds of thousands of pounds is doing it to get a home advantage. You're doing it to give your club a longevity. So I don't see it as a home advantage at all. It's flat, it's perfect. I think anyone wanted a flat pitch. You've got some pitches in non-league, it's a mud bath, it's the pitches uneven, there's potholes, I've got some pitches, and the health and safety, you'd have to say, would not let some games be on. So I think every home pitch, no matter what live you're at, is a home advantage, regardless if it's a 3G or grass. And Alistair Baelish, just going back to Margate, the chairman has stepped down in the last couple of weeks. How important was he for you when he was at the club, and is it likely to make a decision on someone coming in the near future? It was massive for me. It's one of the main reasons why I came to football club. I've known Ali for a good few years. It goes back my Dover days, and when opportunity came, I was delighted to take it and work with him. He was, as a chairman for me, he was fantastic for advice, for help. Anything I need, he did his best for me. I said, so he'll be dearly missed. Not from just from a personal point of view, from a football club. He was a man that he had the club's best interest at heart. No hidden agendas, nothing else. He just wanted what's best for that football club, and I think everyone's appreciative of what he's done and where the position the club's in now. He's left it in great hands, and I think we've just got to try and continue the path that I'll want the club to go on. Well, Steve, thank you very much for the time being. It's now time for your best of the back pages. A look at what's making the sports news from across the county's newspapers. Earlier on today, I caught up with the KM Group's Mark Stokes. Mark, it's a pivotal month for Kent Cricket Club. Just give us the ins and outs as to why it's such an important month for the side.
Well, there are a lot of things up in the air at the moment, most notably who's going to be captain next season. We all thought it was going to be a rubber stamp appointment of Sam, because he's Sam North East, having done the last 2 years, but it would appear that he's been told unofficially that he's no longer the county's preferred choice, which is quite a surprise, and there's a lot of talk about maybe bringing in an overseas captain. So that's where they're at the moment. It is a bit of a shock, because he has served Kent so well, both with bat and as captain in the last few seasons. Yeah, indeed. I mean, he's been, without question, Kent's best batsman, most consistent in all formats over the last 3 years. I think he scored something like 6,000 runs. And just before the news broke that he wasn't their preferred choice, he'd been picked for the England Lions squad at long last. He'd got some international recognition. And this all comes with Kent still looking for a director of cricket as well. Yeah, I mean, I think the interviews for that post are due to take place this week. That's the first round of interviews, and then I think there'll be a second round. But again, it might not be till the third week of January before we know who's got that job. And again, there's a lot of candidates for that. I think both domestic and international applicants. And Alan Donald, as assistant coach, been rumbling on for a couple of years now. Is he getting any closer to him finally coming in the hot seat? Well, apparently he's now waiting for the results of his level 3 qualification, which hopefully, if he gets that through, he'll then get a visa and he will finally arrive. But he will be working with the players in the West Indies. They go to the Antigua at the end of this month for a super regional competition, and he doesn't need a visa to work in the West Indies, so he will team up with the players there. And he has been working with 2 of the bowlers, Keilan and Ivan Thomas in South Africa for the last 10 weeks. So at least he's been having some input.
And just going back to the captaincy, in terms of players maybe who might get the role if it isn't going to go to Sam North East, what sort of names could we be likely to be banded about?
Well, the only candidates within the team are likely to be Sam Billings, who's the vice-captain, and maybe Joe Denley, who's one of the more experienced players. But there is talk that they might be looking to bring in an overseas player. And I know that one or two forums have suggested JP Duminy is one of their targets. But obviously the club haven't confirmed that, so that might just be speculation.
Well, Mark, it's all set to be a fascinating month for Ken. Thanks very much for joining me.
Pleasure.
The KM Group's Mark Stokes talking to me earlier on today. Just before we go, let's have a look at the contenders for December's Goal of the Month. First up is one of two Christmas crackers from Welling's Boxing Day tie with Dartford. Callum Driver picking out the top corner with pinpoint precision to start a comeback for the hosts. In the Bostik South, Herne Bay visited high-flying Carshalton at the start of the month. Jake Embry put them on the way to a shock 2-0 win with a gorgeous chip. In the same division, Faversham were after a bit of magic to help them get a point at Shoreham. Up stepped Ashley Miller with a slick solo slalom and a lethal leveller. Our final goal is a return to Welling. Dartford had surrendered a 2-goal lead with 15 minutes to play. 2 drop points beckoned, only for top scorer Alfie Pavey to brilliantly save the day. To vote for your favourite, head over to our Twitter page at @KM_Team Talk. Steve, just before we go, goal of the month, who are you choosing?
I think it's a straightforward one for me, D.
Yeah, I think Alfie Pavey's going to be pretty popular in that one. Just tell us a game tomorrow for Margate, who you're up against.
Yeah, I've got Needham Market at home, 7:45 kick-off at Hartstone Park, so been another tough one. It's the first game of 5 home games back-to-back, so need to pick up some points.
Well, hopefully Margate can get themselves on a run. Steve, thank you very much for joining us this evening. That's just about it from us here on Team Talk. If you missed any of today's show, kmtv.co.uk is the place to go to catch up on all of it. We'll be back again with another episode of Team Talk next Monday. Until then, good night.